that. Here we go. This is right. No. No, it won't do it. Come on. Stop it. What's up, dude? Is that gonna stay? Alright. Cool. I should have did that before I started the video, but I didn't. So right now, I'm just in my little shed here. I'm cutting hose for my cooling mods. I get it in these gigantic rolls of 250 feet. And then I gotta cut the length. And I made this little device here. It's actually a 3-in-1 collector. Yeah, it's on a phone stand, but the angle is too steep, so I'm trying to tip the stand forward. I use a 3-to-1 collector for like a 6-cylinder header or whatever, you know. And then in soft jaws to help guide the hose past my measuring device here, which is just a ruler with fucking some Sharpie marks on it. And then these cutters, which are awesome. So I just go here and I just pull each one and cut the hose to length, and I stuff them in a box. And I do this for hours at a time sometimes just to get enough hose to meet the demands like cooling mods. I am so backordered right now, it's stupid. So backordered. Clamps have been impossible to freaking get. So it's been dumb. You know, it hurts the income, hurts the name. You know, suppliers, they want a product they can get all the time. Or suppliers, retailers, wholesalers, they want, you know, product they can always have in stock. And unfortunately, clamp companies aren't making clamps. At least not enough of them. So I've been scouring the earth for clamps. I find some on occasion from a place in Illinois. They finally got me some after a long time. And man, every time they show up, they are so freaking dirty. It's like they make the clamps and they don't do anything to clean them or anything. They're just metal dust and shavings, and your hands just their hands actually turn silver from all the metal on them. Put them in the baggies and everything. They're fucking really dirty. Silver and black is just nasty. The ones they get from Ideal Tried On, when I actually get them, those are a lot cleaner. A little oily, but you'd expect oil because anti-corrosion properties and that kind of stuff. But they're not covered in metal dust. But I can't seem to get those. They told me 16 weeks for more clamps. Like, that ain't gonna fucking work. So, but I have about 2,000 clamps in stock right now. So that means I can do about 500 kits, which will almost meet my back orders. But I got a lot of hose to cut because we've been doing a lot of hose clamp stuff. Anyways, I wanted to talk a little about turbos today. I've expressed my opinions on turbos online, and I've given lots of technical data on how they operate and stuff, but this is just more like a generic, like, what do I think for each brand, you know, what they're good for, and that kind of stuff. And then some of the terminology, like some guys ask about, or let me just back up to a situation. Someone says, hey, I want a precision turbo. And I ask, well, what for? What are you doing with it? And yeah, it's like all over the place. It's hard for me to remember like where I post this stuff. Some of it's Facebook groups. Some of it's on my Facebook page. I haven't done any in the Discord channel yet, but I will be. And then I have videos where I talk about turbo functioning. One of them called Comparing Turbos Part 1 and 2. That's a good one where I talk and explain compressor maps and all that kind of stuff. And I might have some on Nasioc, but I haven't done a lot of posting on Nasioc in years, you know, so a lot of the information would be old and expired by now. An example, so a long time ago, there was a big parallel versus series fuel injector debate. And at the time, the biggest injector we could get was like mostly 1,000 cc's or whatever. And oh, the Discord link, it's on my webpage, GetaDomTune.com, shop.GetaDomTune.com. For the shop area, if you go to the Discord subscription thing, that's got the link to the Discord. Some stuff is free, some stuff is subscription based, so you'll have access to be able to talk to us about tuning shit. But the subscription's only $5 a month, so and that gets you into the tuning lessons channel, which is very, very new. There's only like a handful of discussions right now because I just started it. I'm trying to do it on a weekly basis, but I think with my workload, as I'm discovering my workload, I think I'll probably keep it every 2 weeks, change subject, because I still have a lot more stuff I want to talk about the first week's lesson, and sometimes life just gets in the way. And when you break your Corvette, you got to do 500 kits. Like, it's hard for me to get there and do all the Discord stuff as well as tune 2 cars a day and everything else. So it might be 2 week long sessions. That way we can stay on topic and all of that without it getting too watered down. But the link is there. It's also on Facebook, where I have the links to Discord on Facebook too. Oh, the plane stuff. Yeah, I think I will eventually talk about the plane stuff a little more. But today I just want to talk turbos a little bit, and then we can maybe move on to the Oh yeah, thank you for getting me straight. So yes, the parallel versus series explanation. That was, I was always parallel back then, and the problems didn't start happening with Subarus until Subaru came out with a parallel fuel system. Sorry, I was always series, yeah. The factory fuel system is series. It has been for years until 08. 08, they went to like a dead-headed ring, a parallel dead-headed ring for the fuel system, and all of a sudden, the GR Stumble was born. And with the GR Stumble, we found that, hey, if we do a true parallel, or even go back to a series, like the 05 or 04 to 07 STI, then the problems go away. So that was good news, right? So back then, I was saying, stop going parallel with this shit. And in one long discussion thread we had on NASDAQ, I mentioned fuel rail velocity. And at the time, I was saying you want to have good velocity through the rail. And at the time, that was true. I wanted good velocity through the rail in a parallel system, or a series system, so that the temperatures would be equal through all the fuel rails, because I wanted my fuel temperature to be equal on both sides of the engine. And if the fuel moves too slowly, you could have a hotter rail on one side and a cold rail on the other, and then you have different fuel densities in the engine. That was bad. And so I expressed that I thought that it'd be better to have a faster moving fuel mass in the rails. And that was true until the injectors started getting really big. As the injectors got bigger and bigger and bigger, the pulse width got smaller and smaller and smaller. And a high fuel velocity hurts you because fuel has mass, and fast moving mass has a lot of inertia. And so that fuel now had to change direction to go out the fuel injector. It only fired for 0.4 milliseconds. And that creates problems. And the GR Stumble gets worse on cars if you have a fast moving fuel system and big injectors. So going parallel slowed the fuel down in the rails, and some of the stumbles went away. Now, back when I made that post, the fast series fuel system, it wasn't wrong. At the time, that was the best way to get balanced fueling. But now, it's changed. With 1300 and 1700 cc injectors and everything, if it's too fast, you induce weird characteristics because the fuel doesn't want to change direction. It's going this way. It doesn't want to suddenly go that way, right? And only for 0.3 milliseconds. So you have issues in, basically it's kind of like a fuel delay where the fuel doesn't, where you don't achieve full flow through the injector in the time that it's open. You got to either crimp the fuel pressure or reduce the velocity in the rail. So, my comment that I made years ago on ASIAC, probably 10 years ago, is no longer accurate. And someone reading it now would be like, this guy's full of shit. And if that was posted yesterday, that person would be somewhat correct. I was wrong. Well, I am wrong now with my old beliefs. So, some of the old stuff that I may say has changed. So I try and keep up to date. And so sometimes it might sound like I'm repeating myself if I'm rehashing something I've said before, but mostly it's in an effort to keep the facts or everything updated as things change. Or as I learn new stuff, right? Like, no one's perfect. and especially not me. Boy, I fucked up a lot. But as I acquire new knowledge, or as new stuff comes out, I need to update my points of view, my opinions, my outlooks on stuff. Like anybody. Sorry, I keep thinking I see the cat jumping out at something, but it's not. So, turbos. People talk about spool, or they talk about response. They're not the same. Turbo response, turbo spool are not the same. Turbo spool is overall, or spool rate overall is basically the boost threshold, the RPM threshold at which boost is coming in. Response is the rate of change of boost. So if I have a precision turbo, for example, precision turbos have very, very thick and heavy turbine wheels. The blades on those things are just, they're gigantic. Compared to like another turbo, like a Garrett, the turbine housing blades are fucking thick. They are beefy, right? And that's important. The guys that run precision turbos in professional motorsports are not road racers. You're not going to find a lot of precision turbos on professional road racing cars. Just ain't going to fucking happen. Because those guys want response. But drag racers run the shit out of precision turbos because the turbos are strong. They're durable. That huge turbine blade is very strong. It's very... almost dropped it. It's very tolerant to aggressive launch control schemes. When you get the big loud bangs in the exhaust, right? Bah, 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 right? Those are huge pressure waves that are coming through the exhaust and smacking into that turbine blade. And the precision turbos are made nearly bulletproof and can handle all of that. But what's the sacrifice? Well, in drag racing, spool isn't that big of a deal. You've got launch control. Yeah, very high inertia wheel. You've got launch control, most likely if you're a professional drag racer. So you're already in boost before you even leave the line. And most of those guys also have flat foot shifting. So the throttle plate never closes during the run. So spool doesn't matter. Durability does. Longevity does. And pure fucking flow rate does. So for those guys, the PTE turbos, honestly, are probably the best ones to use. I don't know of better turbo for drag racing than the precision turbos. But I don't know of a worse turbo for a daily trimming car than precision turbos. Because their response sucks. They're so heavy that when you change throttle position, the exhaust gas and everything that's hitting the blades I'm almost at the end of the roll and it's all bound up in the shrink wrap. Is unable to impart enough energy to get that thing to accelerate. The blades are so heavy and everything is such a tank, and the blades are cut in a way that they maximize airflow through them. They're made to be efficient when it's spinning really fast. Made to be efficient when they're in the range that they're operating the most. Where other turbos, they have different angles on them. Just maybe a little steeper sweep to it. Maybe a little more perpendicular to the exhaust flow, so that the energy is imparted on those blades much more effectively. Picture a sheet of paper, and I hold it flat to my face, and I blow on it. It's going to fold over, right? Most energy that I impart in the air blowing is going to be transmitted to that paper. It's going to fold over. If I turn the paper sideways and I blow on it, it might go a little bit, right? But a lot of the energy is going to go past it, okay? Same kind of idea. If I have a really vertical turbine wheel, I wish I had a turbo taken apart right here. I don't. I gave it to Tanner. And you can see it. If you look at a turbine wheel, you can see the blades. Often there's like a cup at the tip of the blade and where the nozzle is. And the more responsive turbos are going to have a flatter cut, and then the higher horsepower turbo is going to have a little more tilt to it. Or a flat section is going to be really short and quickly transition into a rotating, to an angled section, right? And those turbos with the flatter typically respond faster. The exhaust gas coming in imparts energy directly on that blade. But the fact that it hits straight into that blade means that there's going to be some counterforce the other direction, right? Some bounce back, if you will. And then the rest of it's going to swoop in. So you get an overall higher resistance to flow if you have a square blade to the direction of the incoming air. Whereas if you tilt it a little more, then the air is going to want to whoop through it easier. So you'll lose that resistance, but you'll also lose some of that response. And you won't get a lot of power and stuff until higher up when that thing's really moving. In addition to the blade design, did you find it? Oh, you see the message? In addition to the blade design is just like I said, the weight, right? The overall weight and inertia of the wheel. A really light wheel is really easy to accelerate with a little bit more extra gas pressure. Blows faster, right? Whereas a heavy wheel takes more pressure and time to accelerate it. And so the PTEs fucking suck in a daily driver. Like they don't respond for shit. But in drag racing, best you can get. For road racing, durability is important. For road racing, durability is important, yes, but so is response. Not necessarily just the boost threshold, but the rate at which boost changes. What are you doing here? That link is not coming through, is it? Looks like you're putting the tail number for an aircraft in chat. I don't know if links are allowed in chat, honestly. I think because of the spam potential or something. Thank you. Yeah, this is like a fucking $800 vise. I'm using it to cut hose. I use it for everything though. Like this vise is great. It's not bolted down yet though, because I'm a dummy. This is actually just a temporary bench I put in this little shed area, lean-to area next to my house. There's some insulation in the top to help during the winter. But like that's the wall of my house, and this is like a little lean-to on the side of it. While I've been working on the shop on the weekends. My buddies can help me out. I bought this place. It had a 40 by 30 shop, but it wasn't insulated. It wasn't paved, or there was no floor. It was just gravel and oil and that kind of stuff. And so I poured a bunch of concrete, and I've been trying to get it organized and get bench tops and shit set up in there, but I'm not quite there yet. It's been a long process. I went from a 2,800 square foot house and a 40 by 20 garage to a 1,400 square foot house and a 40 by 30 shop. Well, that means 1,400 square feet of house shit had to go into the shop. So while I upgraded my shop size, I actually downgraded the available area because so much of it was from the house. So it presented new challenges to try and get the place organized in such a way that I could utilize the shop. So I built a loft in there for house stuff, and just starting to get it organized. So eventually I'll have a nice workbench area in the shop, and I won't have this, literally it's a kitchen countertop from Lowe's on some 2x4 frame that I put together before, so nothing fancy. So when that happens, then I'll actually bolt down the vise, but right now, so, road racing, back to road racing again. Those guys need response as well as some durability, right? But they're not running hardcore launch controls. They could be running anti-lag, and anti-lag can definitely be harder on turbos. But the anti-lag that you would use in road racing, like on the Ford GTs and all of those, it's not as aggressive as the full-out launch control style anti-lag is on a turbine, because in those cases, in the road racing case, the turbo's already spinning, right? It's already going, and you're just giving these pops, right, to keep it going. In the drag racing, it started off only doing 10 to 20,000 RPM, and then you're accelerating it with all these pops and everything. So the amount of instantaneous impacts on the turbine, the strength, right, the delta, the the delta between the drag racing versus road racing is larger, so it's harder on them. So you don't need as big and heavy wheels on road racing cars. And a lot of those guys, they'll go through some turbos in a season. They may take them apart just to rebuild them and verify things are okay. Those guys have a big, wide range of operation, but they need response. A lot of those guys need response. They need faster spool or whatever. And so in those cases, a lighter inertia wheel is better, and maybe a wheel that provides a little more back pressure at the or a little more response at the sacrifice of spins more back pressure. And so road racing turbos are often really good daily driving turbos, because what you want in a car is you want the engine to feel as large as possible by having as much boost as soon as possible and having a good response time. If you think about the PTEs again, in addition to what I was saying before about it, the term being slow to accelerate, well, that slow to accelerate also provides back pressure in itself, because the blades are in the way of the airflow trying to get out of the engine. I had an engine, the bearing failed in it, right? Bearing failed, the turbine wheel was just jammed up in the housing, and that car probably made 20 horsepower, right? It didn't make what it would have made if it was NA anymore. Now it made like 20, because the restriction in the inlet and the exhaust was immense. That turbine wheel's not moving anymore. Yes, it's the same amount of area, right? But now the air is forced to follow the path of the turbine wheel to get out. Where when it's running, the air goes in the nozzle and almost hangs a straight turn and goes out the exhaust. It doesn't have to follow the blade contour, right? Because the blades are spinning. And so the turbo, the blades essentially get out of the way of the air. I guess you could think of it that way, right? They're getting out of the way of the air, so the air can go right out. But if you stop that turbine, then the air is forced to hang all these other turns to get out. And so in a laggy turbo that's sitting there and not spinning up as you're increasing throttle position, right? You're losing torque of what you could have if the thing was even NA, because that air now is trying to go through all those paths to get out of the turbo and into the exhaust. So by having a low inertia, what a douchebag. Sorry, the guys went blown by a school bus on that road. When you have a low inertia turbine wheel, those turbine blades get out of the way of the exhaust as it's trying to pass out the car. So you actually get not just more response because the turbo's moving faster, but more response because the engine can breathe easier in those areas. So it's like a double whammy, in that regard. So even though you do increase back pressure a little bit because you have more vertical tip, it gets out of the way easier, so you get some of the benefit back out of it. So for a daily driven car, a road race turbo like a Garrett or an EFR is a really good way to go. How do you know if a turbo needs a rebuild or replacement? Well, you've all heard of shaft play, right? Shaft play. That's an indication of bearing wear, right? Each turbo and each bearing style has a range in what's acceptable play, what it should be new, what it should be used a little bit, and then what it should be when it's ready to get replaced. The turbine wheels and, well, not for drag racing, Anton, that's what we're saying. The best for drag racing. The turbine wheels and the compressor wheels have a clearance between the housings and those wheels. And as the bearing wears, that clearance is providing the buffer to keep the wheels from hitting the housings. Once they start hitting the housings, then damage starts to occur. Your compressor wheel gets smaller, your compressor housing opens up some, right? And it becomes bad news. So knowing what the acceptable amount of play for each turbo, or for your turbo, is key for knowing that. Also, turbos sometimes start to make noise. Sometimes turbos start to put a little glitter in the oil when the bearings start failing. But overall, shaft play is the biggest indicator. As far as oil is concerned, a lot of people think that oil blow-by or leakage past the turbine or the compressor is a sign that the turbine is rebuilt. Often, however, that is a sign that the engine needs to be rebuilt. Often, if you have oil getting past a compressor seal or a turbine seal, it's because the blow-by or the back pressure, the crankcase pressure in the engine is too high and the oil can't get out. Or you're overfeeding it. You can overfeed a turbo easily, especially on a Subaru, because the oil pressures are often like 100 psi when they're cold, and can be 85 or so when they're warm. But then at idle, they're down like 15 psi, especially if you have king bearings. Then the problem with that is that you got to make sure you keep the turbo oiled well enough at idle so it doesn't destroy itself. Low oil pressure means lower oil flow to the turbo. But then also it's got to have not too much to where it's blowing through everything on the top end, and that's where having that huge range in oil pressure on the engine can be kind of problematic, because you can easily over oil a turbo as well. Then it can't drain out, and it gets past the seals and that kind of stuff. And then if you have, like, we'll say an IAG competition aero separator, right? And the AOS is vented to atmosphere. Well, then your crankcase is never less than atmosphere, right? And that means that the turbo drain is never less than atmosphere. And that's not good for turbos. I mean, it's okay for turbos, but it's not great. It's more ideal to have a suction in the crankcase. If you look at the factory car on the factory intake, it has like 4 pounds of suction, or 2.5. Shit, I forgot what it was. It was a few pounds of suction pressure, right, or less than atmospheric pressure in the crankcase when you were in boost. The PCV system was doing its job and drawing the exhaust gas out and drawing a vacuum on the crankcase. And that's great for power. That's great for turbo scavenging. That's great for ring seal. That's good for a lot of things. Unfortunately, the source of that suction is the intake of the engine, so it sucks in the oil vapor. So sucking in that oil vapor has its, downsides of lower octane, more carbon buildup, etc., etc. When you reduce that pressure with a different intake filter, then who was it? Boost Creep? Was it Boost Creep? Somebody in Flatirons Tuning, I think. I think it was Harvey and Flatirons that did the PCV test where they checked the crankcase pressure. They had a boost gauge on the crankcase pressure, and they were testing different air intakes and different AOSs. That was a very good test, and it showed that the Grinspeed AOS is a pile of shit, which I've known since 2009 when they sent me one. I told them this is a pile of shit. You shouldn't sell this to anybody. It's not going to work. And they said, no, it works fine. Well, Flatirons Tuning and Harvey Boost Creep determined that was a lie. It's a pile of shit. So I don't recommend using the Grinspeed AOS, but that's not the point. The point is that they did the test, and it showed how much inlet pressure affects crankcase pressure. And it makes sense. You can look at the PCV system and see it goes right to the turbo inlet. So the restriction on the air filter is, one of its functions is to provide more crankcase scavenging. And again, that's great. If you can do that and have the cleanest air coming into the engine, like an AOS provide, then you're winning. If you go with the competition AOS, you're losing. You're not getting anything. Like, it's almost pointless to go with the competition AOS. I don't even understand why you would go with the competition AOS. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Why would you vent your crankcase to atmosphere, get none of the benefits of that, and it's an AOS? So what the fuck's the point of that? Like, the point of AOS is to get the oil to keep from going into the engine. Well, now you just minimizing how much vapor you lose to atmosphere. Like, you obviously don't care about the atmosphere anyways, so you're pumping all those post-combustion gases into it as it is. So I don't recommend using competition AOS for anything. Not even competition, really, unless it's just for a drag car or something. But the benefits of having crankcase vacuum are long established. So, anyways. We kind of went on a little bit of a tangent there. You asked about turbo rebuild, and I can go into AOSs and shit. But hopefully that answered your question. And let me see. I just wanted to check chat really quick. Whoopsie. PT's drag turbos. Yes, the PT is the best drag turbo, but the shittiest daily driven turbo. I would say Garrett is probably the best all-around turbo. It's got lower, especially the new G series. Man, the new G series is fucking, that shit is really good. The power output for the turbine size is really damn good. And you may go, oh, wait a second, shouldn't it be the compressor size? Well, it's both. And the G25 660 has a tiny turbine wheel. It looks like a TD05 turbine wheel. It's fucking small. And that thing will do 500 wheel on our dyno on ethanol. And 500 wheel on our dyno is fucking hard to do. And that thing with a tiny turbine wheel will do 500 wheel. It's insane. It's a the G25, 550, and 660 is a remarkable turbo. But you put big cams in it, it's going to choke out quick. So I prefer the G30, 660, and 770. Those turbos are freaking amazing for a daily driven car. Like, I don't think there's a better rotated turbo for a daily driven car than probably the G30 660. That thing is just incredible. Or the G25. But again, if you want cams on your car and you're looking for a little more power, the G30 is the way to go. That thing is amazing. We overlaid graphs of that over EFR 7670, and the power was about the same, and the spool threshold was just the tiniest bit less. Now both cars weren't the same stock to stock, so I can't, say that, but it was still extremely impressive that both those sets made the same wheel horsepower and had almost the same spool within like 100 or 200 RPM at the most. And one's a single scroll, and one's a twin scroll. And they are both around the same boost. I think the G30 or G25 might actually been less boost than the 767. I forget now, but regardless, it's an amazing turbo. And I want to put one on my car. Let's put it that way. I have an EFR 7670 on it right now, and I like the turbo, but it just is not enough power for what I want. So I'm gonna go bigger. Of course I'm gonna go bigger, right? But EFRs are really good for daily driven cars. The twin scroll setup is really amazing. I think if you're going single scroll, it's a waste of time. But it's still not a bad turbo. They're pretty impressive. And the new black ones, they added a bunch of compressor flow with only like 1 millimeter of compressor diameter and practically no reduction in spool threshold on the turbos, and that's really impressive. So like the 83 or 8474 black, or what's called, that thing moves some freaking air. That is an amazing turbo too. But EFRs had the problem, they're sensitive. The gamma titanium, which is a aluminum titanium alloy that they use to create the low inertia turbo wheels and shafts, is very sensitive to speed. The centrifugal force of the turbine wheel itself will blow itself apart if you go over the rated speed, and I think that's just too close. The max speed, the rated speed, and the blow apart speed, there just isn't enough margin on them. They're not quite strong enough. Most other things, you get like a 25 to 50% margin before they blow apart. They become inefficient and stop producing power long before you overspin it. But not these things, man. The EFRs, they will blow apart while you're still trying to make power on them. So that's tough. It's tough. They're fucking sweet though. They respond really well, and they use them. I mean, they made them for IndyCar. I believe it was IndyCars what they made them for. And they don't have a ton of failures in IndyCar, but those cars are very closely, I'd say the power is very closely regulated by the ECM. The turbine speed is closely regulated by the ECM. A fraction of the people in the world in their daily driven cars have turbine speed control at all in their ECMs. I was one of the few because I had a standalone that had it, but even most standalones don't have turbine speed control at all. So if you have an EFR without turbine speed control, that's a potentially risky game that you're playing. So, okay, other question was, a fan of the Super Aero separator? I mean, it is an aero separator. Obviously, it's not that effective. It's only got like 2 bends in it. It does an okay job. I've been considering making a new backplate to make it more effective, to add more tortuous path to the air to increase that. But as you increase the flow path length, you also increase the restriction. And I didn't want it to increase restriction so greatly that we couldn't get good suction on the crankcase through that AOS. If your AOS is post that system, then you can still have a larger AOS then that has a reduction in restriction, but then also an increase in efficiency, like say the AIG, for example. So if you have something like that, then you pretty much want the factory one just to flow as good as it can to get it into the really effective one. And then that way you can ensure that you have good crankcase vacuum. So it's kind of a slippery slope. I think there's still some credence in going for a better backplate and getting better aero separation. Maybe, I don't know. I still think that there still is room for something like that to happen. I just haven't done it because I have so many other projects going on. And I feel like that one would be kind of a small seller anyways, with the IAG AOSs and everything else out there that are proven to work really good. And even then, the Subaru one, the one in the back of the block, is only a third of the system. The valve covers also have them in there. And, the valve cover one is very basic, but it also is still an AOS. So it's hard to say, well, I increased the third of this system by 30%. Which means I got, what, a 10% overall increase in efficiency? That's not a whole lot. And if I could do 30% increase in efficiency in that one, that's a huge jump. Realistically, I could only get like a 10 to 20% increase, and that's on a third of the system. So, what, I got 7%, or, something like that, 3% over the whole system. Not very good. Any words? FP turbos, their UHF turbine wheel as well. I am not educated enough on the FP UHF turbine wheel to provide you any input on that. So I'm not a huge FP turbo fan, but regardless of that, I'm not educated enough on their turbine wheel geometry to provide you anything that would be accurate. I'd be just making shit up, and I don't want to do that. I'm scared of VF20G hybrids. Well, yeah, that's a shitty idea. I don't like the 20G hybrids at all. It's way too big of a compressor on way too small of a turbine. And then, of course, like you said, there's the wastegate issue of the internal and the bearing system and all that shit. So I don't like it at all. 18G hybrids, maybe, because as it is, the factory turbo is basically a 16G, not even a very big one. So going to an 18G, it's just a slight upgrade and not a ton of weight and that kind of stuff. 3076, yeah, the Gen 2 3076 is pretty freaking amazing, but that's why you have one, Josh. Radium versus Killer B. I assume you're talking about what? Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. Radium Killer B, what? 9-blade turbines on the IHI. The 9-blade turbines, again, that's one of those things where you're getting more of your cross-section available for airflow. You get 2 blades out of the way. Anytime you get 2 blades out of the way, you increase the airflow. You also reduce the weight of the turbine, which can increase response, but you have less blades on there. And so it really comes to a factor of, does the blade geometry adequately compensate for the lack of blades? And then does the weight of the turbine aid the blade geometry in doing so, in increasing the response and overall flow? But yeah, you can, overall, if you have less blades in there, you'll have a higher flow rate, and less weight. But is that enough, is the question. And with some compressors, it will be enough, because some compressors only require a certain amount of torque, and some compressors require a lot of torque. It also depends on the speed. Some compressors need really high speed, some compressors don't need as much speed. So it's always a two-way street with turbos. Intake, the compressor side and the turbine side are always, it's always in balance. You can't just generically make a statement on one unless you just reduce the weight. If you can just reduce the weight without anything else, that turbo will definitely perform better. Let's see. I'm going to track my car a lot, and I'm happy with about 300, 330. Is there a better choice for reliability than the VF52? Well, you're not getting 300, 330 real, actual wheel horsepower on a V52. So every turbo is a better choice than the V52. A V52 has a 36-pound compressor on it, which means 360 at the crank with a 25% drivetrain loss. There's no fucking way you're getting a real 330 wheel out of V52. That's a high reading dyno. Plain and simple. So is there a better turbo choice? Yes, there's one that could actually achieve that goal. That'd be a better choice. You could, I mean, again, oh, I guess we didn't talk about bearing design much, did we? Ball bearings versus thrust bearings, or journal bearings. So there's a lot of talk back and forth about which is better for what, and there's only so much I can address. with it because there's so many freaking variables. But generally, a journal bearing turbo has a higher speed allowance than a ball bearing turbo. But they tend to spool a little slower, but then they hit like a freight train, right? You get in a car with a ball bearing turbo, and it doesn't have that instantaneous punch that like an FP Red would have, right? Things like that. Those journal bearing turbos can spin way faster, and they have less friction when they get to higher speeds than the ball bearing turbo was, because the bearing has almost no inertia, has almost no mass. Whereas a ball bearing turbo, you have all these balls, you have the race, you have the shields and all that stuff spinning in there, and there's mass behind that, and that's got to go with the turbo. So at low speeds, when the oil friction on the ball bearings and everything is low, then the ball bearings actually outperform the journals. But on the very, very top end, those journal bearings will outperform ball bearing turbos. The question is just whether or not you need one or the other. Typically, if you're on a Garrett, you don't need the 4-to-1 pressure ratio that you may need on a journal turbo. And that seems weird, but a lot of guys that run the ball bearing turbos are looking for that mid-range. They're on a daily different car or something along those lines. It doesn't have a ton of octane available for it, so you can't get the high pressure anyways. Again, those are generalizations, but bearing type is kind of important too for figuring out what you want with your turbo. I always try and go with ball bearing, plain and simple. I always find it overall is better. Seen the Knight Motorsport valve covers. Needed more baffling than breathers. It's packed with a metal media. Yeah, that'd be weird. I'd be sketched out by having a media in there as well, because moisture is real, and moisture and oil will corrode anything, including stainless. You can still corrode stainless, in that environment. So, yeah, I definitely would be with you on that. It would make me a little bit uncomfortable. Stock location 400 to 500 wheel horsepower. No such thing. I don't believe at all that there's a good stock location 400 to 500 wheel horsepower turbo. At least not a real 400 to 500. Then that's the big issue too, right? Especially Americans. American-made dynos fucking read high. Most American-made dynos are giving you crankshaft horsepower and calling it wheel. Plain and simple. They all read high. So, and you see it all the time. This 400 wheel horsepower car goes and runs a high 12. Like, I mean, that's not right. It should be quite a bit faster than that. So no, I don't think there's any good stock location turbos for that. If a customer comes to me and says they want 400, 500 wheel and they want stock location, I tell them to get the fuck out of here, because they're not going to get it. Not a real number. If they want to actually hit those power numbers, then we're going rotated. I mean, you could put a red on there, but that's not a good choice. It'll do it. You can do 500 wheel on a red in a stock location, but the 3-inch inlet is a fucking nightmare to deal with, and all that shit is just shoehorning a turbo in there, and then you suffer greatly in the response department. You could take a turbo like a red off of a car and put a rotated turbo that flows 150 pounds more than a red, and it'll still spool 500 RPM faster than the red did and make more horsepower. Like, there's just no point in going stock location that power goal. I think that's just fucking stupid, honestly. I mean, nothing about you. I'm not saying you're stupid, but like, that goal on a stock location is just, it seems absurd to me. I don't know why anyone would want to do that. I mean, you have limitations in packaging alone that create issues with crappier compressor geometry, crappier turbine housing geometry. Like, everything is impeded by that location being stuffed in there under the manifold, and then having a small inlet to try and draw in that has a 90-degree turn to squeeze by a power steering pump and all that shit. It makes no sense. It just makes no sense. And so, anyone tells me they want that on a stock location turbo, I tell them to get the fuck out. Like, I don't want to deal with them, because that car is going to be a fucking nightmare. That owner's going to email me all the time. Oh, I got another freaking leak on my turbo, and oh, my thing doesn't work. Oh, this part's fucking making it. I just know that is a hassle I do not want to deal with, and no owner should want to deal with that either, to save themselves a couple $100 on a different turbo kit, honestly. So, no. And you can tell I'm passionate about that because I've been doing this for 20 fucking years and dealing with guys that want to have huge turbos in the stock location, and it's just, it is not fucking worth it at all. Block turbos, I like block. Sometimes I feel like you get like a Monday turbo or a Friday turbo, and a Dom 1.5 will mystically spool like 500 RPM sooner than a different one. But sometimes it could be the car as well. But I've always liked the turbos. Hey Eric, man, what's up, dog? 18G, good turn whiskey porter might be a good idea, but the imbalanced VF39 is like 7. Our CNC, a better hybrids like TD4, 19T all over again. Make sure it's on the stream. 6758? I don't think it's 6258, I think it's 6758. We did 5th gen Legacy with a low mount 6758, and on ethanol it had full boost with like 20 something hundred RPM, held 20 pounds, redline, and a 400 fucking wheel. The 6758, really close to an engine, is an amazing setup. Eric's DFR for life, yeah. Yeah, oh look at that. And Eric says stock relation sucks. Sure does. My 1960 started burning a bit of oil at 740 miles out the oil change. I noticed it's happened quite a few times before. What can I do about this? It means my engine will go bad. It means your engine could be bad right now, or you need a better oil. I don't know what kind of oil you're running, but you should definitely get something that's less volatile with heat, get better heat control, or figure out if you're actually burning oil because you've wasted number 4 ringland in the thing. Horsepower dream killer. Yeah, he was wrong on power once. He guessed low 500 on my car and it made 600. You're right. Yeah, your car was, hey kitty. Your car was an experiment for sure. Like we had all these things that we, in fact, I've talked about Josh's car in the stream before, where I said I built this car for mid-range, and then the only thing we fucked up on was having the heads ported, and that kind of messes it up a little bit. And his car told me what it wanted to make. Like I couldn't get the boost down on his car. It just kept saying, no, we're making boost. And I couldn't get the torque down on it. Oh, sorry, kitty. Yeah, sorry. I know, you're chicken. Come here. What do you want? What are you crying about? I know. Sorry. But yeah, his car just kept making torque and power and really wanted to do it. I pulled this car down, the timing so far down at peak boost that it misfired. I couldn't get the torque to come down, and it still was making over 600 something pounds of torque to the wheels. And that was one of those situations where sometimes the cars just tell you what they want to do, and you don't have a whole lot of choice on the matter. And his car was like that. It was crazy. But one thing that's often lost in the 4-cylinder turbo world is, and this is where domestic guys get it right. Domestic guys, for the most part, understand different components have different RPM ranges, right? Different components have different horsepower ranges. And too many times in the aftermarket 4-cylinder turbo world, guys are like, oh, I want this processless intake manifold on my VF. You're like, no, dude, that's a bad idea, right? And so there's a lot of stuff in the VF turbo world where they don't understand the balance. Well, in this car, we made this car with balance in mind, and we targeted a certain range, and holy shit, did it perform in that range! It performed too good. I kept trying to dial it down because this block was not made to handle the torque that it was producing. His head studs were not made to handle the torque that it was producing. I kept trying to dial it down, and eventually it shit itself after only a couple thousand miles, 5,000 miles or something like that. Like he did a pull on the freeway, or getting on the freeway, I think, something like that, in cold weather, and just separate the heads in the block. And it was just one of those cases where it was too fucking good in that area. So let's see. Full race has stock location EFR stuff. Yeah, but their stock location EFR stuff is, like you said, it's in quotes, right? The turbo is around that area, but the up pipe is different, the down pipe is different, the turbo is pulled back some. It's still a little cramped, but it is definitely not the same limitations as when you bolt a turbo onto a stock framed up pipe. You know, like that's different for sure. So it's still, I don't like it, and it's their 1.5 scroll or whatever. Like, what's the point of that? I don't dig it. Rats do suck. FB Blue. Yeah, FB Blue is an interesting turbo. They had a bunch of problems with them initially. I think they've solved them all now, which is good for them. That's awesome. So I haven't tuned much because we don't ever recommend them anyways, so I can't really speak much to the Blue. I did one. It did okay. It was on the FA. It made more power, but it wasn't a lot more. Yeah, the low mount 658 was awesome. Yeah, well, there's your problem. You're using OEM oil. So one thing you have to remember, and I think I've said this multiple times in other streams as well, and I say it all the time because I got to make sure that people understand it. You have to understand the goal of the people that designed your car, right? Your goal and their goal might not be the same, and by might not, I mean is not the fucking same, right? Their goal, number one, is passing emissions, and part of passing emissions, EPA standards and all, is the cradle to grave emissions for the car. Okay, they take into account how much oil the car will use and then what's in that oil. So the OEMs have a certain blend of oil that is a low emissions basic oil. Okay, it's not good, right? It is not good oil, but it's what they have to do because, and that's also like why BMW says that their transmissions, the tranny fluid is lifetime fluid, but the transmission is made by ZF, and ZF says you gotta change it every so many thousand miles. Like, there's no fucking such thing as a transmission lifetime fluid, right? But BMW says that so that their cradle to grave emissions are less. Because the better that they do in cradle to emissions, I don't know who that is. The better they do in those emissions, the less they can charge for the car, or the more they can make on it, right? The less tariffs and all that kind of shit they get hit with on the way in. So, the goal of the dealership is not your goal, right? You guys don't have the same goals. And so using their shit-ass oil is not going to do you any good at all. DZ can't drive. New one will rip. Yes, the new setup will rip. This time, we're intentionally altering the efficiency area a little bit. We're putting a bigger cam in it, putting my cams in it, which will push a little power up, but we're getting rid of the porting, which will bring a little power down. Now, my cams have proven on multiple engines to spool faster than really big cams do anyways, while also providing the same or more power than really big cams. So in essence, we're widening the power band on his car, as well as increasing the rate at which boost will come in, right? So we're reducing the spool time and everything. So that's going to be really sweet. I'm looking forward to his car a lot. The head's at the machine shop right now, and hopefully in the next few weeks we'll hear that thing run again. Heat treating an STI crank. I don't know why you would. I don't know why you'd heat treat an STI crank. So no, there's no tips or suggestions on that. I see no point in doing it. The nitriding has no fucking point if you're using aftermarket bearings. Right? There's no point in doing it. The only reason that the OEMs did it is not for crank strength. It's because the bearings are not allowed to have lead in them anymore, and so the bearings are freaking hard. And if you grab a bearing from a long time ago or an aftermarket bearing versus a new OEM bearing and you poke them, you will feel the difference. The aftermarket bearing will be a little softer on the surface, and the OEM bearings being a lot harder. So they had to make the crankshaft harder than the bearing, so they increased the crankshaft hardness on the top. I don't see any point of doing anything else anyways. A bug eye with an external wastegate on a stock TD04 imbalances. That's not true. I have to tell you there that you are not correct there. That's irrelevant. An external wastegate doesn't create an imbalance of any sort. External wastegate provides the amount of bypass that is needed for the situation, plain and simple. Internal, and it also does it with a reduction. So if you have airflow going through the turbine and into the exhaust, you're going to have a certain level of back pressure. If I take 20% of that and put it into the atmosphere, that's 20% less that's in the exhaust. That's a reduction in back pressure. That's a horsepower benefit, plain and simple. And wastegates are only open as much as needed to be, like I said, for the target boost that you have. If you're running really high boost, the gate is mostly closed. If you're running really low boost, the gate is mostly open. So having a wastegate size for what you want to do is, a wastegate is sized more for the boost level than just sheer flow. You can run a 38 millimeter wastegate on a G35 1050 and have no issues because you're going to run 45 pounds of boost on it. Like, so what? But if you only want to run 17 pounds of boost on it, you're going to need something bigger than a 38. So yeah, that's not There's nothing wrong with a bug eye with the external wastegate on T204. If that's what he wants, that's fine. Better boost control and the power gain by reducing the amount of restriction in the exhaust and reducing the drive pressure needed to operate that turbocharger. So I don't see nothing about that. WPC coating or shot peening. Yes. Short answer, yes. I'm a fan of anything that increases the strength of it, as well as reduces friction, potentially increases oil retention capacity. All those things I'm a fan of. Whether they're cost effective or not is a whole nother story, and that depends on the goals. Whether they're needed or not, a whole other story, depending on the goals and that kind of stuff. But you know, WPC has been proven to be beneficial for people that need that extra little bit. I just did a cryogenic treating on one of my gear sets one time. My car was eating rear diffs. I had R160 in it, and I had the tarmac gear, the Cusco tarmac gear center diff, which is 35 front, 65 rear. And it also became 0-100 if the rears broke loose, and that was a lot of fucking fun. I drift that car all the time. You just throw it sideways and be rear-wheel drive and have a great time. But I was eating rear ends like crazy, and so I had a brand new gear set purchased. I sent it to a guy. At the time, they were called, I think, Advisor in Metals is what it was, somewhere on the East Coast or something. And he cryogenically treated the ring and pinion, and I never had to buy another one. They were great. If I go 540, actually, where'd that cat go? She got here? I don't know. Do you think if I go 540, better than your stock STI? I would. I prefer a 540. Regardless of brand, I prefer a 540. IG's new big bore throttle body kit. Yes, I did see that just today, actually. And what it appears to be is the Toyota throttle body, like off the Tundras and stuff. But they require you to transfer your guts over to it because the Toyota throttle body has the wrong voltage for the sensor going up and down, right? Subaru is really weird. Subaru is one of the only manufacturers that has both A and B channels start low and go high. Almost every other manufacturer in the world runs A channel is low to high and B channel is high to low as the throttle opens. And so it makes using other throttle bodies nearly freaking impossible in a Subaru. So what they did is they said, hey, this has the exact same drive dimensions as the factory Subaru throttle body. So if we take the guts of the Subaru throttle body, which includes the throttle position sensor, and just stick it on the larger throttle body, lo and behold, it works on a Subaru. So I believe that's what they did. Again, that's speculation. Just look at the pictures and what I know about the Toyota throttle bodies and what I've seen. I think that's what they did. And that's great. You know, they're using an OEM throttle body with Subaru guts. Well, your Subaru guts. But an OEM throttle body, which means OEM fitment, OEM quality. The blade's going to actually seal. It's going to be centered. It's got, you know, it's made to last hundreds of thousands of miles because that's what Toyota wants them to do. So I think it sounds like a pretty good solution. And I'm all for a larger throttle body. The Subaru throttle bodies are pretty damn small. So I'm all for that, for those guys. Yeah, right on. Well, I need to swap boxes of hose. I need to use the restroom and a few other things. So I don't know if I need to pause the stream to use the bathroom or put it out the window so you can look out the window. I don't know. But I think I'll just set in the window, look out the field, and come back and grab it. And if you're still here, then we'll chat some more. But I'm going to be gone for like 5 minutes. So. I don't know if it's going to work or not. Let's try this way. Maybe it wasn't the whole 5 minutes. I missed a call though. Who was it? Which one of you guys called me while I was taking a crap? My mom. My mom called me. Okay. How many of you guys know or have heard that I was in a little band? I was just curious if you guys knew about that. I am the really crappy drummer for a band. We used to get together every week or two, jam and practice, and I play drums. I'm the drummer. Let's hope the Amber Alert sound doesn't hit while he's gone. Fuck that ringer. Yeah. So, yeah, sorry about that ringer. Lane and I both have Androids, and everybody else at the shop has an iPhone. And the two of us had the same fucking ringer. And I fucking hate type fucking ringers. I hate that shit. Took phone this shit with me? Yeah. I can do that, I suppose. I fucking love cashews, by the way. Yeah, you know, it's loud as... I was in the bathroom, there's a lot of shit in there, so I bet it was loud as fuck on the stream. So, I apologize. You're back? Well, thank you. Yeah. Anyways, so, if you haven't heard it, you should maybe listen to one of our songs. We don't have much in the way of vocals, so nobody does it. Zane can sing decently well. He's been practicing and getting even better at it. Singing is one of those things that for some people it's just fucking there, and some people they gotta work at it. And some people, like me, it will never be there. Yeah, so no singing for me. I do it though, every day, all day. And you'd think with as much practice as I've had, I'd be good at it. But nope, I don't. I'm not. I can do some background vocals though. You know, throw enough reverb on anything, and it could not totally suck. All right, I'm rolling this big ass thing of hose here into position. Let me set you down. Uh-oh, I need my knife. Set down. Damn it! Okay. Anyways, I can do the same thing everyone else does. Like, yo, bro, repeat my SoundCloud. Ooh, wasp, dude, I love this shirt. Like, it's got the GetaDomTune on the back, and it's got the flag, this arm, and the tier 1. I dig it. I dig this shirt. It's really cool. Oh, there's a wasp in here. I need to go out and start spraying these bitches. I see some nests over there. Maybe you guys will get lucky and I'll live stream me screaming like a girl when one of these fucking things lands on me, huh? Like, I'm cool with spiders. Flag is back. Well, yeah, because the phone. But the stars and stripes are on the left. The stars are on the left, stripes are on the right. Unless there's some weird etiquette with fucking shirt flags that's different than normal flags. I know that there is in the military. There was some weird thing with where the flag, what direction the flag went or whatever. Right, exactly. That's what I was just saying. Yeah, I'm no longer in the military. I did 12 years of that shit. I did more than my part. I don't plan on doing any more of that. Ooh. See, I keep getting two different kinds of hose. Same company, but they have like some hose where it's smoother on the outside and the outer layer is a little bit thicker. And then you were military too, though. Yeah, I was military, correct. And then the other ones where it's not quite as smooth, like they left a little bit less outer layer on it. The inside looks the same, but the outer layer is slightly thicker on the smooth one versus the not as smooth one. I don't know if that's just where they are in their manufacturing process as they're pumping them through the machine, you know, as temperatures change or levels in one of the containers or something gets low. I don't know, it's silicone hose. I'm not sure they fucking make them in mass production like this, but definitely interesting. The groovier one's is easier to get clamps on. The smoother one is hard to get clamps on, but looks better. I don't know. I'm just staring at this fucking wasp in front of me. I got attacked by a bunch of these little fuckers one day. They had made a nest behind a door. Yeah, the smooth is pretty. I totally agree. They had made a nest on the ground behind a door to a basement, and I opened the fucking door to see where they were, and it crunched the nest, and the nest was like football sized, and I heard crunch, and all of a sudden, bam, 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 bam. I got fucking stung on my leg in so many places at once. I just fucking jumped up and ran away screaming. Yeah, it fucking hurt for fucking days, man. I got bit by some of these little fuckers. And unfortunately with these guys, right, they don't give up their life to sting you like poor little honeybees, right? Honeybees don't make it often, but these guys, they just keep biting you all they fucking want. But yeah, luckily I'm not allergic to that shit, because that probably would have been the end of me. There was so many bites. And I'm allergic to fucking everything. But I'm not allergic to peanuts. I'm not allergic to bees, stings, and wasps, so that's good. Oh, the band thing. Should I play a song? There's no lyrics. It's mostly like a rocky, jazz, fusion kind of thing. There's one of the songs that we did is actually my favorite song ever, really. And I love good music. It's on my lip and tongue because I took a sip from Mountain Dew. Oh man, those motherfuckers. Yeah. At least they like the Mountain Dew, right? There's a lot of shit that ants won't even fucking go after. They're like, I don't know the fuck you humans are eating, but we ain't touching this shit. Anaphylactic shock, bro. Yes, Josh, we could. I didn't strip like you did on the fucking... So, Josh had an allergic reaction. The DZ can't drive. He had an allergic reaction to mushrooms. He's allergic to mushrooms, it turns out. And he had the whole everything swelling up and can't breathe thing. I had a reaction to... We don't know yet. I'll put it that way. And I was in hospital for a fucking week. And shit was shutting down in my body. It was like such a anaphylactic shock type thing. Organs were shutting down and stuff. So that was scary. But they hit me with the epinephrine in the emergency room, and I became hyper aware. You know, it was like, I don't know, man, like autistic Rain Man or something. It was, I could count every dot in the ceiling tiles very fast. Like it was like every dot. I was just counting fucking ceiling tile dots and everything else. Like I was just so aware of everything around me, and the details were just like beacons, you know. Everything was just so crisp and everything. Josh, on the other hand, yeah, his vision went black. And as things moved, the colors changed from black to purple. I don't know what in his vision caused his vision to go black and purple, but he said it wasn't a fun trip. Yeah. But it was a trip. Yeah, so it's like a family trip. When your dad's screaming at the kids to shut the fuck up, all he wants is peace and quiet. He's been driving across 3 states, and his wife's nagging the whole time about the shit they left on at home. It was not a fun trip, but it's a trip. Josh, DZ can't drive. His car is a white 15 STI. We just had the pipes powder coated on it. A really cool, like metallic, or metallic like gunmetal and stuff. What did he say? I have autism and I'm prescribed Ritalin. A Ritalin for autism, huh? That's interesting. I didn't know that was a thing. I know Ritalin for like ADD and all that kind of stuff, but for autism. Come on. I'm trying to think about how that would work, what they're trying to do there. Because Ritalin usually helps people focus, but autism is usually too much focus. So, how does it affect you? Sure, I believe that they can be linked. On the spectrum of some sort. I'm just curious how being hyper-focused helps the autism. And motivated. Speaking of autism, you guys ever watch The Good Doctor? My wife watches the hell out of that shit. I've been drawn into it a few times. One season in particular, and then kind of wasn't it for me anymore. But I think it was season 3 or something. I enjoyed season 3. But every time I watch it, I just think about this guy and Tropic Thunder. You know, like, just kidding. That's a cut on Ashton there. I have light ADD as well. Free yeah. Yeah. I do too, you know, because I'm in the VA. So all my meds are free as well. Apparently I'm tripping because I keep seeing something in the corner of my eye. I question everybody, man. I question everybody and everything. And it isn't like, you know, are you right? It's, please explain it to me. I want to understand it, you know? And I definitely go to the professionals and ask them to explain it to me. My surgeon, he fucking loves me. Because we'll start having a conversation about what he's doing or what he did. And I'm asking all these specific questions about, you know, what's this tendon do, or are you doing this because of, and what about the fulcrum for this, and then, you know, instead of using sandpaper, use a chisel because you don't want to burn the bone and all that kind of stuff. He's always like, yes, that's exactly what it is. And then we talk about, you know, body stuff. So like I enjoy talking to people, the professionals, and learning as much as I can. So I ask and question everything. And sometimes I do obviously question the logic, you know, like, why did you do this? I don't say, I think you're wrong. I just want to know why, you know, what step. And my other doctor, he loves me too, because we'll talk about things and I'll do my own research and I'll bring in. Is that open insulation? Yes, it is. Yeah, so I have 3 leaks in the roof behind me. And so I haven't closed it up because I got to fix those leaks, and I have all of it open so that it doesn't, oh no, I mean, it's got, I mean, sure, maybe a smidge, but it's backed. There's only the edges of the bats that are hanging out. That's fine, whatever. It's not windy in here. So, I'm not handling it right now. But yeah, insulation fucking sucks. Putting that shit up, wear long sleeves and all that, because man, that shit itches. And then I spend a good 15 minutes afterwards with a roll of packing tape, rubbing it, you know, my arms and stuff, get all the insulation out of it. All right, I'm gonna grab my other thing. Oh, I have it. me a second. This is my work phone. Different phone number, of course. And I don't have it set up with any of the swipe shit that I do or nothing. So everything's slow. You guys use swipe? I love swipe, man. I can fucking whip out a paragraph in like 5 seconds. Let's see how this plays. Phone speaker to phone microphone. I can't imagine this be very good. I think you get a speaker. Alright, that too loud? Can we still talk? I don't know what it sounds like on your end. That phone might be better. And I won't get any YouTube violations because it's my fucking song. It said it sounded kind of trap-like, and I'm unfamiliar with trap music, what it sound like, but I mean, that ain't bad for a phone mic then. Obviously, it sounds way better if you went to. Yeah, that's why I was confused. Maybe it's meant I was trapped into listening to it or listen to it. That song is interesting because that's actually the same beat as like 3 of our songs, and we just changed the tempo and the and obviously the voice being the guitar, and it can produce like a totally different sound to it. The parent song that we first started with, you know, there's an evolution to music, and with songwriting, it's the same. There's a constant evolution, and for many artists, even their own sound changes over time. If you listen to like David Gilmour or Pink Floyd and stuff, over time their sound is evolved, right? Same with Led Zeppelin, Metallica, definitely. There's a lot of that, and so in this case, a couple different beats that I really liked and I enjoyed, and the other guys did too, and it just like it fit with so many other types of songs that we were doing. It's pretty standard, right? A 4/4 is like fucking almost everything. This wasn't a 4/4, but it fit with a lot of stuff, and just by putting different fills in it, different accents, and then different guitar and stuff, that completely different song. And then some of them were like similar, but a totally different feel. Like that one was quicker, more upbeat, had like a little more like rock kind of vibe to it. And then there's another one that we did that has a very jazzy feel to it. Yeah, this one is an LG, and this one had the boombox feature where like there's like a whole chamber in the back of the phone behind the speaker. It was like this huge chamber back there. And it worked okay, but the overall volume wasn't very, oh, that didn't work. The overall volume wasn't very loud. Oh, microphones, yeah. Yeah, microphones can get pretty good too. Well, they also typically have like, 5 of them, or 3 of them in the phone, so that their noise canceling works correctly, Like I can be tuning a car on the Pixel while I'm talking on the Pixel, and all they hear is my voice. They don't hear any of the background noise, and it can be loud as shit where I'm at. And I'm like, I can't hear you, and they're like, you sound fine to me, that kind of thing. So all the microphones all around the phones. I think iPhones are pretty like that too. I had one phone that was like that, but if I was laying in bed on the phone, like it would cut my voice out too. And I think maybe because my voice is bouncing off of the wall above me and being activated in other phones and being caught up as background and being deleted. And so in a lot of cases, you have to like move away from walls and things like that. That's kind of weird. Fuck, I don't remember my sign in. Let's try that. Sure, let's do it. Oh, that didn't work. Here it is. Working now? Of course not. There we go. Save that. You guys know who Dr. Disrespect is? He's a video game streamer. His stream's fucking hilarious. And some people take shit that he says or he does and make songs out of it. There's some pretty good ones. Where's my shit? There we go. God damn it. There it is. You know what? Sometimes the freaking sloth or the fucking SoundCloud shit is weird. Here we go. This song is actually the same beat as that other song. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. The fills are slightly different. The guitar is obviously clearly different. But still some similarities, right? You hear the... That was a gamer first. Yeah, right? You were a gamer first instead of a tuner. What do you mean? Yeah. I would give you a Raoul if I could roll my R's, but I can't, so I can't give you a Raoul. You know, this is gonna sound funny. When I was a kid, we had a fairgrounds that had these permanently installed speakers that this guy had made on location. And the tweeters were just a 3-inch horn tweeter, and then there was one, like a 12-inch speaker. They cover everything else. And he had these waveguides built into it. You could see them, like the sub was like square waveguides around it, and the tweeter was in this big horn section that came around and swirled out into and then in this big horn. And those 4 little speakers, a 3-inch, a 12, would fucking crank the whole fairgrounds. When the bands would play live there, the whole fairgrounds with these 2 speakers, right? But 4 actual drivers. 4 drivers with the entire fucking fairgrounds, man. It was amazing. And that was the 90s. But that was with waveguides and everything. And those things ripped. And I'll never forget those things. A transmission line arrangement. So we got a sound guy in the house apparently, which I like. I like sound stuff, but you know, I only know the basics that they taught me in physics, which is mostly just resonance and harmonics. And that's it, really. I mean, I know about crossover points, and I could do some of the math to make crossovers, you know, which is just basically, you know, capacitive inductive circuits and shit like that, which I can do all that. I was an electrician for a long time too, so I could design that shit, do the math for that. But as far as all the fancy audio terms, don't know. I know what SPL is, I know what dBs are, but that's about it. I would never try and teach anybody that stuff because I'm not proficient enough in it. The sound stuff, that is. This song was recorded in my little music room with 1 microphone. That was it. We had 1 mic in the room. I made this box around it with foam, sound deadening foam around it, and I arranged it in a way in the room to try and get the best balance possible. And considering it's 1 microphone, a cheap mic in a room, it came out really good. The drums, mostly the cymbals are a little strong. Yes, exactly, Travis. That's why we're doing it. Yeah, it does have a little bit of a Santana vibe. Yeah. Kind of like it's like a rocky jazz kind of thing, but this one's pretty mellow. You know, it's something that we would just jam. I used to study with this on, and actually a bunch of guys in my study group like, dude, play that song again, and we just fucking study like crazy in college for this. Not to be confused though, college was only a couple years ago for me. started in January 2016, and then I finished up last year. I finished up 3 degrees from our local college. And if it wasn't for COVID, it would have been 4. But they're getting to be dickbags about going to the campus and learning. And there's some things I need to be in that environment to learn effectively. I can't do it just staring at a computer screen, you know, in a fucking team meeting or nothing like that. Especially not at home. If I'm learning, I need to be, you know, in the room with the instructor, certain subjects. Yeah, you know, and on the deck, right? If I had a deck, I really need a deck. Yeah, that's true. Actually, in the case of this, the highs were too strong, and the lows were a little weak. I think I had a little too much, and also the frequency response of the microphone itself kind of killed the low end a little bit. This thing, it's pretty heavy in the mid and a little too much on the high. Yes, I'm building cooling mods right now. Well, I'm cutting the hose for the cooling mods. Yeah, I wish lumber wasn't so fucking expensive. I really want to build a deck. That was like our goal when we moved in here, is build a nice like 16 by 32 or 24 by 16 deck in front of the house and just hang out. We love being outside, especially on days like today. Minus the wind, but fuck, it is beautiful today. At least I got all these windows around me right now. If I still smoke weed, maybe I should smoke weed to this too. Drink some brewskis, get high as fuck. Of course, then I want to play, but I can't play high. I tried that, I suck at it. My drum instructor used to tell me, yeah, right? Yeah, fucking coloring's a good way to say it. Yeah, distortion. My instructor used to tell me, well, he'd come over, and at the time, this was a long time ago, I was into weed a lot, and he came in and he's like, I noticed your cologne. And I'm like, oh yeah? And he goes, yeah, that smells like pretty good cologne. And he was like, I wouldn't be opposed to maybe purchasing some of that cologne. I was like, well, we can just trade some drum lessons for cologne. And so I would get drum lessons. And one day he was like, do you mind if I do it right now? I'm like, sure, you hit it. So he's smoking weed, and he looks at me, and he's like, all right, most important lesson for today. If you plan on gigging, and you plan on getting high, he says, you have to practice high. He says, you can't play high and practice not high because you just can't do it. So I tried to play high. He was right. You can't do it. Paranoia sets in, and you get worried you're gonna forget the beat you're on, or miss something. And what would happen is I would get so paranoid that I would never do a fill. I would just hold the beat and count in my head. So paranoid that I would forget something. I wouldn't do any fills. So it was funny. My beats were fucking like tight, but yeah. I bet you got some sick chops, dude. Like, my chops suck. I've been working a lot on just some rudiments and getting better. I mean, I've only been playing since I was 30, and even then it's recreational, you know what I mean? And starting an instrument when you're 30 is definitely not ideal by any fucking stretch. But I wanted to play drums since I was a kid. It just never came to fruition. And my wife before Teresa, when she told me we were getting divorced, I was like, I'm buying myself fucking drums. That's what's happening. I'm buying myself drums. So I bought myself drums and started playing and taking lessons. And I love it. And I miss it right now because I haven't played in over a year. I tried doing some rudiments on my practice pad just last week, a couple days, but my left arm is still not ready. Not ready. Sad, but that's what it is. But I definitely miss playing. I will get my shit set up again at some point. I'm doing an expansion on the shop maybe, if I ever save enough money for it. I want to do expansion on the shop. And in that expansion will be more workrooms so I can do more of this stuff, as well as like a 3D printer type area where I can 3D print some designs, and then have an area where I can record and entertain. I think it'd be a lot of fun. But right now, I'm gonna work on this game. Cooley mods and my other projects. But I'm always intrigued by audio stuff, you know, be it shows, theater, you know, all that kind of stuff. What is that supposed to do, Nick? What are you asking me? What's supposed to do? Evan Base. Where are you at, Evan? Where are you located? This old. This is like from 2015. It's loud. Any car stuff you want to talk about? I'm almost done my hose cutting. I got quite the mountain of hose here. Oh, we started putting the Corvette motor together yesterday, by the way. We started blueprinting it, actually. The mains are too tight by about a thou. So I overnighted new main bearings. We probably start streaming the assembly of the LS long block for the Vet. Certain portions of it. We got the rods are pretty much done with the blueprinting phase. Got all the right bearings, the bearing clearances in there. So that'll be fun. Going from a 5.7 to a 6.2. Going from an LSA of 114. It's 114 and 116 in my current cam to a 111 with a million degrees more overlap. Quite a bit more duration from a 280 to a 303 duration cam. So I'm adding a bunch of cubes and a bunch of angry sounds to it, including the gear drive timing, shaft mount roller rockers, link bar, short travel hydraulic lifters, roller of course, CNC ported heads, the LSXR intake, the 2-inch Cox headers, and a few other things should make for one rowdy sounding Vet, and probably make a solid 700 horsepower NA to the crank, not to the wheels. It's gonna be pretty fucking ridiculous. I think I have it at like what did I set compression ratio at? I think 11, 10.9 or 11. So I might run a little bit of ethanol. Now they've got ethanol locally at a pump. Might run like a 30 to 40% ethanol concentration. It should make it a whole lot of fun. The only issue I'm going to have is that I'm going to rev it to like 8 grand and the tack on the vent only goes to 7. So I'm going to enable a shift light using the skip shift light that the Corvettes have. And that will be my shift light for all the gears. And I'll probably set it at like 75 or 7800 to give me time to see it and respond before I tap that rev limiter. This one's got kind of a Leonard Skinner feel to it. So, if you're ever interested, these songs are on my SoundCloud. It's just Dominic and Sia. Oh no, Rum Dom Rum, I think, or both on SoundCloud. Like Run Dog Run, but rum, like the drink. Or in the case of that nickname, it was actually for Remington Ultra Magnum. It was a nickname or a screen I made for a gun club that I was in. I had a few rums. I had a 300 rum and a 338 rum at the time, and so Rum Dom Rum made sense, you know. That's my mountain hose. I run out of room in my box. Now I know how my wife feels. I don't know if he was get that joke. Be old enough for that kind of joke? I don't know. Uh-oh. G25 660 is outdated. You don't have a G25 660. You have a G30 660. Different turbo. Oh man, my chat wasn't showing up. Something happened. It freaking. My chat give you the option to pause or anything like that. It's kind of weird. Wish it would do more than that. I gotta go find my 5-inch micrometer. I think I just found it. Gotta measure the pistons. What's this? Are these push rods? Oh yeah, push rods. Okay, cool. Yeah, that fucking ringer's gonna shit, isn't it? Yeah. I like this annoying as shit. That's why I chose it. Oh, darn. These are sweet, but that's not what I want. All right, I'm gonna go back on the sound stuff that you guys are talking about because I want to be part of it here. Things like mineral wood, foam, and denim. Principle of converting wave energy into heat. Yep, everything's about heat. That's to control harmonics. Same thing as stuffing does. Carbon able to do better volume compared to the wood. Slows waves down. The base energy basically makes the driver feel like it's a larger box. It's a good discussion that you guys are having there. I don't know enough about it. Actually, I think I probably carry these inside at this point, right? Start making some kits. Steers first. Get some good fills in this one. I gotta go put my LS together. I got a call. That's who was calling me. It was Nick at the shop, saying he needs the 5-inch micrometer so he can measure the bores because he's got the rods done. So I gotta take this guy to the shop and hopefully show some progress on that. I also need to get a sleeve big enough to put the get a ring presser big enough. I'm gonna try the ones I have. They're pretty close in size. Hopefully they're close enough that we can use them, but otherwise I gotta get a 4.0 70 something compressor on the way. Oh, I fucking love cashews. Luckily for me, my wife likes all the other shit in here. The almonds are alright. The Brazil nuts I'll eat. I like those too. She doesn't like Brazil nuts, so that's in it for me. We both like the cashews, but alright. Well, that being said, I'm gonna start heading to the shop and start doing some more blueprinting on that engine and assembly on it. Maybe I will see you guys later on. I like your sound discussion you guys are having. But you guys are both in my Discord already. So hopefully you guys can continue talking about that stuff in Discord. And we'll put up some links and other shit in there too. Because I always like learning and I like giving others the opportunity to learn. And if you guys actually work on this shit, then that's a nice resource for people. So let me actually start a channel for you guys on that before I split real quick. Yeah, it's a nice one device. I guess I was telling you guys earlier, it's like a fucking $800 device or $750 device. Not a cheap one, but it's really nice. I've had it for quite a few years. I had it at MPS. All right, so I'll put in the educational channel, but I won't lock it so that anyone can talk about it. So, all right. All right, I started a channel in Discord for you guys. I just called it Physics and the Like. That way, I can also use it later on when we start doing more physics discussions, which would be a good time. So I would appreciate if you guys talked about some sound stuff in there, carried your discussion on and maybe did some references or whatever. That'd be really sweet. And then we could help improve the level of knowledge for everybody. I don't necessarily want to be the only guy sharing in Discord. I'd like for all of us to be able to do it. And Evan, if you're not in the Discord channel, if you don't have Discord, maybe you should get it. If you game at all, we game. We have a bunch of available text channels and voice channels for various things. One of them is tuning stuff. Like I've told others, the tuning thing is still in its infancy. I'm trying to build a database of resource lectures and provide or make myself available to questions. The specific tuning stuff is actually subscription based, but the channel itself is not. So, well, the rest of the channel itself, the Discord server, I should say, is not. But one of the tuning channels is the lessons are, and that kind of stuff. But the regular discussion is not, and a bunch of other things like that. So, check it out. The link for it, it's on my website, GetaDomTune.com. In the store area, if you go to the shop, go to the subscription, the invite for the Discord, the link is in there. You don't need to buy it to get into Discord, like I said, so you can click on it. You just need to buy it to get into specific channels on the Discord for the tuning stuff. But feel free to be part of the conversation. And if you like to game with us. We do music stuff too. I've got, I've got humor channels, conspiracy theories, ask me anything, music, game stuff, all that shit's in there. It's still, like I said, it's new. I only started it last week, but the community is growing. We're at like 70 people right now, but it's growing slowly. Let me see. 45, 55, 65. 70, we're at 80 something people right now. So it's going. But a lot of us game as well as do car shit. So I got motorsports channels in there. I have some bots that auto update some things on motorsports, as well as video games shit and whatever else. So I'm just trying to get us all together where we can talk, not obviously not face to face, unless you turn your camera on, but voice to voice, and go beyond just the text and typing. But also, we have the text channels, but to do all that stuff and just try and maybe foster another community of people that, have similar likes and some desires in learning about tuning, and some people that might never post in there, but just want to learn about tuning that come in. So anyways, I think it'd be fun. And I think it's a way to try and increase my availability to people. I've been really busy this last week though, since I broke my car, but definitely going to be paying a lot of attention. Every night, I'm on here every night, trying to do stuff, talk to people, increase, answer questions, and do lessons and stuff. So, as it becomes part of my daily routine, it will be, it'll be more inclusive and better, I believe. So, anyways, thank you everybody again for visiting me today during the stream, and I look forward to the next one. Potentially, I'll do a short one later on with some LS stuff, depending on what I find out when I get there. Maybe describe some of the blueprinting process that we're doing, things like that. So thanks again. Hopefully I'll see you later.